Hi everyone. I'm going to start the lecture on the chordates here because I did cover the first part of the slides in class as best I could, even though my the screen on my computer went black and I wasn't able to fix it until after class. But anyway, I wanted to start with this question because we didn't talk about this, and I don't know if you even realize that snakes are tetrapods. If you remember from our lesson in class, we said that the tetrapods started with the amphibians. So none of the fish are tetrapods, but the amphibians are tetrapods. I'm trying to get this to work. But anyway, that means they have 4 legs. So why would snakes be classified as tetrapods? Well, first of all, snakes don't have legs. But the other reptiles do have 4 legs. All the other reptiles besides the snakes do have 4 legs. So turtles and lizards and crocodiles and alligators, all of those have 4 legs. And if you look at a snake's skeleton, there are vestigial legs associated with the hip bones. They have like a pelvic bone, a pelvis, which is the same thing as hips. And they do have these small, tiny vestigial. And vestigial means, I don't know why this won't write. Vestigial means that it's reduced. It's a structure that is reduced in function. Here we go. And also, a lot of times, reduced in size. So vestigial legs exist attached to the pelvic bone in some snakes, but you would never see it unless you looked at the skeleton of the snake. Okay, so the reason that they're classified as tetrapods is that all evidence points to the fact that they evolved from the other reptiles, which are tetrapods, that they started out as an animal that had, their ancestor did have 4 legs. Okay, so that's the answer to that. There's a section here on the pterosaurs, which are the extinct dinosaur birds. They're different from true dinosaurs because they were adapted for flight. And then the archosaurs are the actual dinosaurs. There's a little section on whether or not the dinosaurs are extinct. I'm going to skip that. I am going to talk to you a little bit about the birds, the class Aves. They are endothermic, and that means they are warm-blooded. So even though they're related to reptiles, reptiles are ectothermic. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep saying that. Ectothermic. And that means the reptiles are cold-blooded, but birds are more like mammals in that way, that they are endothermic. So they're able to maintain their own body temperature, regulate their internal temperature, no matter what the temperature is outside. Birds, of course, have feathers instead of scales. Reptiles have scales. Birds have feathers. Feathers are thought to be an adaptation of scales, like that happened during evolution, during the evolutionary process. Birds also, for them to be able to fly, their bodies have to be lightweight. They can't be as heavy as other animals are that can't fly. So their bones are hollow, and we call those pneumatic bones. They are hollow and they're not filled with tissue. Our bones are filled with bone marrow. But their bones actually are hollow. They contain air spaces, and that really reduces the weight of their body so that they're able to get lift and actually fly. And then their airflow does travel in one direction. Our airflow air comes in through our nose into our lungs and then goes back out of our lungs through our mouth or our nose. With birds, airflow travels in one direction. And maybe there'll be a picture about that in a minute, but birds do have primary feathers and secondary feathers. It talks about it here, that the secondary feathers provide the lift and the primary feathers provide the thrust. So the secondary feathers provide the lift, allow them to lift off of the ground, and then the thrust that they need to move forward and fly is accomplished with their primary feathers. Then we move on and look at a picture of what hollow bones or pneumatic bones would look like. And then the airflow, I said yesterday that it was very complex. So a bird does have a trachea, just like we do. We have a trachea that's attached to our pharynx, which is our throat. So air comes in either through our mouth or our nose into our pharynx and then through our trachea to our lungs. In a bird, the air comes in, and once it gets into the trachea, you can just follow the arrow. It does enter the lungs, and then there's some gas exchange with the lungs. And then some of that air actually flows to these air sacs. There's posterior and anterior air sacs. And so the air basically just leaves either the posterior or the anterior air sacs. Posterior is more toward the tail end of the bird, and then the anterior is toward the head of the bird. And then when for the air to be breathed out, the gases come into the air sacs, meet up at the lungs, and then go out through the trachea. So it's not a air comes in and then it circulates and comes back out kind of thing. It's air comes in and leaves the entire respiratory system, leaves and enters the blood, and then it leaves the blood containing carbon dioxide and comes back in, and the bird breathes out the carbon dioxide. So the air that's coming in is providing oxygen to the blood, and so all of this that's going out contains a high concentration of the gas molecule oxygen, and then this gas that's going into the air sacs is carbon dioxide that has built up in the tissues. It's going to enter these air sacs and then meet up at the lungs and then come out through the trachea. So that's quite different from how mammalian lungs are designed and airflow is designed. This is a section on the evolution of birds. I'm gonna skip it because I really want to get to primates. We talked about the mammals, that the characteristics of mammals, they always have to have hair and mammary glands. There are three types of mammals. The monotremes lay eggs, the marsupials have a pouch, and the Euthyrians are another name for placental mammals. So here's the picture of the platypus and the echidna. These are our monotremes, which lay eggs. The marsupials, it took me a while. Okay, well, it actually tells you what it is, but I looked at it, and a Tasmanian devil, if you've ever seen one, it is just ugly. I mean, well, you might think it's cute, but I don't. Anyway, a Tasmanian devil is actually a marsupial. You might not know that. They also reportedly smell very bad, but they are one of the marsupials that live primarily in Australia. Marsupials include kangaroos, koala bears, and opossums. So they have young, the newborns are born, and then they move and live in a pouch until they develop further. Then the Euthyrian mammals are the same thing as what we called, and what we wrote on the board yesterday, as placental mammals. And some of the mammals are the rodents, the whales and dolphins, the carnivorous mammals, including dogs, cats, and bears, and I would really say, especially for dogs and bears, that they're omnivores. I think you probably know that. And then primates, which is what I wanted to get to, is the primates. So in order to be classified as